Hello everyone, my name is Meher Desania. I am the Global Director of WZCC for the Middle East region. At the outset, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our guest speaker, Meher Pudumjee, Chairperson of Thermax Limited, as well as our WZCC Global President, Adel Dawa, WZCC Directors, Chapter Chairs, Members and Guests. This is the fourth global webinar WZCC Dubai is hosting. India, as we know, is a powerhouse of enterprising women from the front and women in business. Over the years, women have become the real architects of society. They have strong inner strength, willpower, and know how much work needs to be put in building an institution. Nothing can stop them, even in the most difficult times. Today we have with us an eminent woman, not only at the helm of her business, but also facilitating India's transition to a clean energy future. Yes, she is none other than Meher Pudumjee, Chairperson of Thermax. One question that often comes to mind is, what has made Meher so successful over the years? Is it the environment she grew up in, or the concept that got her attracted? We all know that concepts morph over a period of time when you start interacting with your customers, competition, and environment. So what did Meher do so differently? One thing that stands out is her continued approach, capability, and strengthening the company's culture. Many leaders today believe that three most important things in any business are concept creation, building capability, and finishing it with culture. As you may be knowing, Meher is a trained musician and young talent and groups. You may not know, but the beautiful song, Na Mangu Sona Chandi, Na Mangu Hira Moti, in the opening slide of this webinar, has been sung by her. And now I would like to invite Naushir Mirza to formally introduce Meher Pudumjee to the virtual gathering of entrepreneurs and professionals who are working from around the world. Speaking about Naushir Mirza, he is a highly respected and powerful personality in the corporate world. He is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in India and currently serves as a director on the boards of several multinational companies, including Tata's and Thermax. His contribution to the world has been significant and noble. He has continuously strived to improve governance and ethics in the corporate sector. He is also on the boards of various charities and greatly concerned with the impact of humankind on natural world. It is with great pleasure I request Mr. Naushir Mirza to introduce Meher Pudumjee to our participants. Naushir, please go ahead.
Thank you, Meher Desania, for a very kind introduction. There's a metaphor which says, no man is a hero to his valet. Now, Meher isn't a man, and nor am I her valet. But there is a relationship to this metaphor in that I have sat on Meher's board now for 10 years. In a momentary lapse of good sense, she decided to invite me, and that was 10 years ago. And indeed, that was a year I now see when she sang this song, Na Chahu Sona Chandi Hira Moti. And that's the year in which her company became a $1 billion company. So don't believe what she said in that song. And she was also giving, I think, a message to Feroz out there. Feroz, she said, no more soda in Pyar. So that's her lovely husband, Feroz, a great friend of mine, a person who thinks very much like I do or I like he does. So that's that. Now, what can I say about Meher, which is not already mentioned in the excellent introduction and the six or seven attributes that were put up on the screen a little while ago. And what I would like to talk about, and that is mentioned there, is her enormous confidence. When one of the points out there was to surround herself with people who are better than her. And there may be one or two exceptions on that board, including me. But the very majority of people, the large majority of people on that board are of outstanding stature in the business world. People who have been extremely successful. I can think of very few business leaders who would want to invite onto their boards people who are maybe even more successful than they themselves are. But that's the only way you can get this board to be a better board and the company to be a better company. And to do that requires a great deal of self-confidence, and Meher has that. It said something about you must listen rather than speak, or some words to that effect. That's also true. Meher is a great listener. Indeed, sometimes she listens far too much, and one of the feedbacks we need to give her from time to time is, Meher, you must tell us to stop talking, because we tend to go on and on. And I say that to you also, Meher Bisania, because if I'm lapsing into my normal habits, you can stop me now. But she has this habit. She doesn't have this habit. Meher is a great listener, and that is what makes this board, which I have the privilege and the pleasure of being on, an ideal. It's a sort of a model board. All the things you read about how a board should function, what it ought to do, all of those things I see manifest in the Thermax board. And for that, I think most of the credit goes to Meher and to her mother, Anu, who set these precedents when she was the chairperson of the company before Meher took over. Meher has what has she done during the period, apart from making the company a $1 billion company in 2011? I think the biggest thing that's happened, and it certainly in the 10 years I have been there, is to see the shift in focus from what we used to be. And we used to be a company that contributed to a very dirty environment. We made boilers that burnt hydrocarbon fuels, coal. We still make them. But her focus, and the one measure that is inevitably now discussed in every meeting, is how far have we moved from the black to the green side of the business. And the movement has been enormous in the years that I have been on this board. And this is only because of Meher, because just about every other executive in the company only understands how to burn coal or biomass or stuff like that. They don't understand green. So it was only her single-minded determination. And I think many of us directors were a little doubtful about the wisdom of this kind of thing going green, because the money was still being in the black side of the business. But she said, regardless, we cannot continue to contaminate the environment. I take my hat off to Meher for that one single thing. The other thing, which I think I must give more credit to Anu than to Meher, but Meher has carried the baton just as well as her mother ran with it, is the CSR. And there's a joke in the company that Thermax is a company attached to an NGO. And what's this NGO to which it's attached? It's the CSR function of the company. And Meher, perhaps are you going to talk about the CSR function? Then I will not talk about it, but it will be, you will all be inspired by what she has to say to you, because she herself is so inspired by what she does in that. And finally, since I think I've used up my 3 or 4 minutes, is to say that Meher's got a lovely family. Her 2 children, Zahan and Leah, they're just wonderful children. And of course, she's had a recent addition to the family. Some of you might be astonished. It's a person called Lara. She joined the family 18 months ago, and Lara's got 4 legs and a tail. So I don't know if we'll get the opportunity to look at Lara today, but Meher, I'm much privileged to be able to introduce you today. Thank you very much, Meher Besania, for giving me this opportunity.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Meher, are you ready? Can we?
Yes, thank you. Thank you,
Naushad, for those very kind words. And I loved the last sentence on my Lara. She is really, truly our joy in these last 10 months, especially during the lockdown. And a big thank you to Mayor, Yezdi, all of you for inviting me here today. It's really a pleasure to be here with all of you. And thanks for putting in my song, which is most embarrassing, but also thanks for putting that video together, which was so beautiful. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. You're welcome.
So if I can start, I'm going to actually share a screen, if I may, because I've got some slides which I'd like to share with you. Can you see them? Can you see it? Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about Thermax, a little bit about my journey, and then a bit about our CSR, our philanthropy, and I look forward to questions and answers after that. So I really believe that Thermax is a business with a purpose. And our tagline is conserving resources, preserving the future, something we truly believe in. So it's a 3-generation-old family business, which was started by my grandfather, Mr. Adi Bathena. We're an engineering manufacturing company that's based out of Pune in India. And I felt that I need to talk to you about our sphere of influence, because that is what sets the tone. It sets the culture of any organization. And I want to start with a letter that my grandfather sent out to every new recruit way back in the 60s. And I'd like to quote some of the contents which has influenced our culture over the last 50 years. So it goes like this. I've just taken a few excerpts. This being a human enterprise and that therefore fragile, we would like to handle it with great care. We try to encourage entry of those who are earnest, competent, mature, sensitive to their surroundings, pleasant in their attitude towards life, with a capacity to laugh at themselves. We like to work in freedom, in the belief that you would enjoy doing your work in such an atmosphere and would like to be trusted with responsibilities. Incidentally, may I suggest you use your freedom with great finesse so that eventually you become more conscious of your responsibilities than your rights. Try to be yourself at all times. So these are the words that come up in my grandfather's letter to the new recruits. Another one is by my father, and this is really what the organization stands for. Profit is not only a set of figures, but of values. And then something else that my mom and I read about 15 years ago. Business must be based on growth and profit, or else it will die. But if business is based solely on growth and profits, then it also shall die, for it no longer has a reason for its existence. And my mom always says, and I completely agree, that
Your PowerPoint is not moving, sorry.
No, I'm not moving it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not moving it. But can you see me? Can you see me when I speak?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. And business cannot succeed in a society that fails. So our social responsibility is really to all our stakeholders, whether it's our employees, our customers, our vendor partners, society, and the environment. So this is my grandfather, Mr. Adi Bathena, who started Wonson. Wonson was a collaboration with a Belgian company called Warsaw, and he was the founder, chairman, and managing director. And that was the beginning of us manufacturing baby boilers for industrial use. My father, Rohintanaga, joined the company as a professional, But later he married my mom, who was the daughter of Mr. Bathena and became the son-in-law of the company. When our collaboration with Watson ended, we had to change the name of the company. And that's when we called the company Thermax. And my father became the chairman and managing director of Thermax. So what made and makes Thermax different? I like to believe that we have a very dynamic, committed, and value-based leadership. What do I mean by this? We believe that Thermax is an institution. It's not here today and gone tomorrow. We believe in the long term of this institution. Like Naushir said that there are certain businesses that we will do and there are certain businesses that we will not do. We've come out of various businesses that we did not find were above board. And we've decided not to get into certain businesses, however mouth-watering it may be, because we all want to sleep well at night. And our entire organization believes and practices this, which I'm really very proud of. It's a very never say die attitude kind of organization, very committed, never say die. And I want to give you a short story over here of my father. In the mid 80s, he had a heart attack, his first heart attack. And my mom took him to the UK for a bypass surgery. Unfortunately, straight after the surgery, he had a stroke. He couldn't recognize us. He didn't know his numbers. He didn't know the alphabet. He didn't know what color was. And this very, very intelligent man was a vegetable in terms of his mind. And the physiotherapist would come each day. And my father at that time, because of his stroke, didn't have a grip in his right hand. And he was very, very keen to tie his shoelaces. And the physiotherapist said to him, practice for the next 1 month, Mr. Aga, and I can guarantee you that in 30 days, you will be able to tie your shoelaces. My dad was just so committed, so much perseverance and grit that he practiced the entire night. And the next day in the morning, when the physiotherapist came in, he actually tied his shoelaces. So I think it's the same kind of grit, commitment, perseverance that he brought into the organization, into the people of the organization. We have a very strong focus on people. When my dad actually had his heart attack, that's when my mom decided that she had better be part of the business and understand it. And so she entered the business in HR under a very dynamic HR head at that time. And believe it or not, but my grandfather and both my parents were not engineers. And yet they created an engineering organization. How do you do that? You can only do that if you empower people, if you give them freedom, if you allow them room for mistakes, and you encourage them. And that's exactly what my parents did and my grandfather did. And therefore, we have a phenomenal team of people within Thermax, which I am really extremely proud of. We invest a lot in them. For example, when my dad was around, he sent 9 of our executives to Harvard Business School for studies, for doing their 3-month management development program. It was very expensive in those days. And people said, I hope you've asked people to sign a bond. And my dad said, no, I don't believe in bonds, because if the person, after he comes back, does not feel a passion to stay within Thermax, I would rather that that person leaves rather than staying behind just because he has signed a bond. And so that was my dad. My mom and the HR in our company have brought in huge changes in the organization in terms of many, many sentient processes. I remember my mom starting something called an open forum, where the chairperson, the MD, and the head of HR sit and answer any questions that any employee may have. And we do this once a year. And I remember that initially the kind of questions that they were asking was, "Madam, my chair is broken, and can you get someone to fix it?" Or some crazy things on my computer is not working. And after a couple of years, I told Mom, I said, "Why don't we just stop this? It just doesn't make sense." And she said, "Have faith. It's a process. We have to have faith and give it time." And I can't tell you how happy I am that today, after I think it's 22 years since we started our open forum, the kind of questions, the kind of suggestions that come up in our open forum are completely different today, on a strategic level, with people giving lots of suggestions, including our workers, which is really wonderful. It's a very innovation-driven company. We focused a lot on applications, on how do we, I mean, just for an example, I'll give you potato chips that are being fried by, say, Lay's. The vapors that come out of the frying process, our people have found a way to use those vapors, which have heat in them, to produce cooling. And so the entire Lay's factory cooling is done by the vapors that come out of potato chip frying. So you don't have to use electricity to actually get the cooling going. And the last is customer-centric. It's a very customer-focused organization. Again, I remember my father saying that every time I receive a customer complaint, a part of me dies. And that is truly how we feel in the organization. So let me take you through a little bit through my journey in Thermax. I had a brother, Purush, who was 5 years younger than me. And let me just say that as we grew up, we were both treated extremely equally in the house. There were no special privileges given to Purush just because he was a boy, except that my paternal grandmother did have a soft spot for Purush because he was a boy, but my maternal grandmother more than made up with her attention on me. We both decided that we wanted to do engineering, and my parents completely encouraged it. There was absolutely no push for us to join the family business, but I'm sure at the back of my parents' mind, they would have been very happy that both of us decided to join. And after I finished my engineering, I decided to come back and join the family business. So I joined as a graduate engineer trainee in 1990. That's a long time ago. And I remember we were only 6 women amongst 100 people, 100 men that joined the company at that time as graduate engineer trainees. And I have to say that again, sadly, we are still at about 7% of women in Thermax today. So over the last 30 years, we have not changed in terms of the number of women. But what we've decided and started doing about 4 years ago is that at the entry level, at the supply level, we've said that we want to have at least 20 to 25% of the entry as women. So today, at the GET level, we get 20 to 25% women. So it'll take a bit of time for us to shift the needle. And of course, I went through a lot of training, a lot of hard and soft skills. If we have time later, I can let you into a small story. My husband, Firoz, joined Thermax in 1991 after completing his MBA, and he was working elsewhere and then decided to join us. And in 1992, my parents felt that it would be a great idea if both of us went to the UK and turned around a small fledgling business that Thermax had. So they just threw us into the deep end, and we were supposed to turn this little fledgling business around. I remember my mother ringing up one of our directors, Dr. Joshi, and she asked him, she said, would you go there as a mentor to both these youngsters. And Dr. Joshi, he was the head of our R&D and a director on our board. And even before he rang up his wife to ask whether he could go away for 1 year, he just told my mom, of course I will. And again, that's the kind of commitment of our people within the organization. Of course, we had many, many challenges in the UK. My husband jokingly says that when I married you, I thought I'd have a nice lifestyle, but here you've pushed me into this company called Thermax and in the UK with tons of challenges. But I think it was the best learning for both of us. And I'm happy to say that at the end of 4 years, we turned it around. And I think the most important lesson that I learned while I was there was the difference between profit and cash. A very important lesson in business. In 1995, we had gone public. And unfortunately, in 96, my father passed away with his second heart attack. And that's when Anu stepped in overnight as the chairperson and managing director of Thermax. And that's the same time that Feroz and I returned from the UK to help my mom. And unfortunately, a year after that, my brother Purush passed away in a car accident. So it was the most difficult time for us, especially for Anu, because there she was having to manage the organization and deal with a lot of personal loss. And we had just gone public. So we also had one more stakeholder, which was the minority shareholder, to think about. So Feroz and I got onto the board, one after the other, to help Anu. I got into finance because I felt that I needed to understand finance in much more detail so that I could be of help. Feroz got into our international business. And thereafter, we ran a couple of our divisions. You know, my father was a very visionary leader. And in the 90s, when India opened up, he went into many, many different businesses. We were probably the first to go into software even before Infosys. We were probably the first to get into windmills. Actually, that was way in the 80s, but it was too early because there were no government tax breaks or anything at the time. We got into many, many diverse businesses, but unfortunately, when he passed away, we found that these businesses were sucking in a lot of cash and a lot of management time, which we just couldn't afford. And then came the economic downturn in 99, 2000, and we made a loss in Thermax for the first time. And then, of course, Anu brought in Boston Consulting Group to help us turn around the business. And of course, that's another big story. But apart from restructuring the organization, they made many portfolio changes. We had to come out of many businesses, had to sell some businesses, close down certain businesses. And one of the most difficult decisions for us at the time was to move away from being an executive to a non-executive. They suggested to us, we had 9 executives at the time on the board of the company, 4 independent directors and 3 family directors. And BCG said, when things are going well, everything is fine. But when the chips are down, it's very, very difficult for an executive who's running a business to wear a different hat when coming into the boardroom and to be able to objectively look at his or her own business. So they suggested that either we stay on the board as non-executive directors, or we get off the board and stay as executives. So both Feroz and I decided that we will stay on the board. The 9 executive directors weren't given a choice. They were asked to get off the board. And again, they graciously not only agreed, but stayed on with the company even after they were asked to get off the board. Then in 2004, Anu retired and the board appointed me as the chairperson. I was in my 30s, and Naushir, you mentioned that I am a very confident leader today, but let me tell you, at that time, I had very little confidence in myself, very little belief in myself that I could do justice to this position after my mom and my dad. Letting go is extremely difficult for the older generation in a family business, and it's not easy. In my case, I have to say I was very lucky. My mother vacated her office, her physical office, on the day that she actually retired. And she has never interfered in any decision in the organization, except if I want her opinion for anything, which I think says a lot. So today, our portfolio consists of power, heating, cooling, water, chemicals. So these are utilities that go into the manufacturing of any product. And all the waste that comes out, which is air pollution, wastewater, hazardous waste, we treat that, and some of the waste we convert into energy. So that's, in a nutshell, what Thermax does. I just wanted to give you a glimpse of the kind of products we manufacture so that you can just see it for yourself. This is the largest export order that we got, I think 3 years ago, of 15 packages of boilers that we had to make for Nigeria. Each of these is 6 stories high, okay? And what we did beautifully in this particular case, and we have a video for it, it's on YouTube, is that we actually modularized and engineered the whole thing at our plant in Mundra, which is very close to the seaport. And after the whole thing was modularized, it was put onto this vessel and taken to Nigeria. And because of the modularization, the amount of time that it took for installation at site was just 21 hours, which in most cases would normally take 6 months. So the cycle time was reduced hugely. This is Thermax's largest rooftop solar installation of 5.76 megawatts. Again, just to give you a glimpse of what this is all about. Then about 10 years ago, we decided that we will have a build, own, operate business, which is completely green. This is on the books of Thermax. This is on our balance sheet. So what we do is we supply steam, or we supply cold water, or we supply water, clean water, instead of the equipment, instead of selling the equipment. So we actually look after the plant for the entire life cycle of the plant. This is an air pollution control equipment, and it was set up in the Philippines, but we had to commission it during COVID. And so we did that remotely sitting in Pune. So our vision is to be a globally respected, high-performance organization offering sustainable solutions in energy and the environment. So as Naushir said, I am deeply concerned about moving more and more into green. And so just to give you an idea, about 10 years ago, 40% of our turnover came from green sustainable solutions. Today, it's moved to about 70%. Our values. If you see our values, it's not very different from any organization. But I always tell our people, do you actually experience these values in our organization? Because if you don't, then these values mean absolutely nothing on paper. And so do you feel that you're respected? Do you give respect in terms of when you're recruiting? Do you give respect for diversity of thought, which may not be the same as what you think? So when I talk to every single person that joins Thermax, whether it's an engineer training or whether it's a lateral recruit, and I take them through our entire evolution of Thermax, our vision, and what each value means to us. So unfortunately, as Noshi said, we were a billion-dollar company, but of course, things have been tough over these last few years, and also the dollar to the rupee, we've depreciated. So we are at 822 million as of March 2020. We have installations in 88 countries worldwide, 14 manufacturing facilities, of which 10 are in India, and sales and service offices across 27 countries. So moving on, I thought I'd talk a little bit about philanthropy first, and then about CSR. So, in talking about philanthropy, I grew up in a family that truly believed in philanthropy. My mom is a social worker by training. And so when Kurush and I were young, I remember my mom used to take us to Mother Teresa's home. And we had two other friends, Anjali and Arun, who were very close to us. And the four of us, every summer and winter, probably twice a year, would put up plays and would sell tickets to our poor little parents and their close friends, and then would sell cookies and lemonade during the interval. And whatever money we collected, we would actually, four of us would go to Mother Teresa's home. It was a very small, tiny amount, but we would go and give it to them. So I think it started from a very, very young age. And when my brother passed away in 1997, there was a big void in my mom's life. And she felt, my brother was a person who had come back from the UK and found that he was very, very perturbed by poverty in India. And he kept telling my mother, why don't we give all our money to the poor or to do certain social causes? And my mom said, when you grow up and when you have your money, you can decide what to do, but you can't put a gun to my head. And unfortunately, soon after that, he passed away. So my mom was really looking for a cause. And that's when somebody introduced her to Shaheen Mystery in Bombay. And Shaheen at that time was this young girl who was so passionate and had started this NGO called Akanksha. At that time, Akanksha was a community center, many, many little community centers, which complemented children going to municipal schools. So they would teach, the children would come here for about 2.5 hours every day, and they would teach them English, math, values, and just allow the kids to have fun. And my mom was really taken up by Shaheen and her credibility, her passion, her commitment, the team that she had put together. So she said, why don't I bring these community centers to Pune? And that's when we brought these centers to the city of Pune. And a few years later, we felt that instead of just 2.5 hours, can we increase it to 8 hours by actually moving from community centers to schools? So we started the first school in a public-private partnership with the Pune Municipal Corporation, where they gave us the building, and Akanksha came in with their principal, the teachers, their pedagogy, and we came in with the funds. And at that time, then Thermax took this on. And today I'm really happy to say that Akanksha has 21 schools between Bombay and Pune. I think probably catering to about 10,000 children. And 14 of our children, again, really, really proud to say that they have gotten to United World College, which is really very difficult to get into, with a complete scholarship, not only to do their 2 years at UWC, but also to complete their entire undergraduate education in an American university. So these kids have gone to Mulshi in Pune, they've gone to Singapore, they've gone to Germany, Armenia, Italy, all over, wherever UWC have their schools. And now many of them, or most of them, are in the US. I remember meeting one of them in Singapore when my daughter was also studying there. And we invited her for lunch. And this young little lady brought us a little gift. And both Anu and I said to her, you know, why have you spent your money in buying us a gift? We don't need a gift. And she said, no, this is really something that I love to do. And let me tell you, I'm getting more than enough. It was some 20 Singapore dollars. And she said, not only is that enough, but it's enough for me to even save. And I nudged my daughter and said, listen to what this young girl is saying. So that's really Akanksha. One of Akanksha's children from the center finished his CA in his first attempt and interviewed with Thermax, and he has joined Thermax. So the whole circle is complete, which is really makes us feel extremely proud. And what Akanksha has also done, which I think is a great thing, is that two of their young kids who've now become alum, they have invited them to join the advisory board. So just to hear the voice of the child, because if we're doing everything for them, we need to hear what they want. The second is Teach for India. So Shaheen, the very lady that started Akanksha, moved on about 13 years ago to start Teach for India. Teach for India is based on Teach for America, which today is across 40 different countries under the Teach for All banner. So Shaheen started Teach for India. Again, Anu supported her in starting it. Today, of course, there are many, many people who support Teach for India. And I just want you to hear this tiny little piece, which I just love. I hope it comes on.
Even though I'm a small student or I'm a small child, I can also help the community because children also have a power. We have a strength inside us. But I think an excellent education is that not only studying and being good in all subjects and getting full marks and all that. For me, an excellent education is getting full marks in your values and inside your heart putting. So what type of person you are?
According to me, an excellent education is a type of education where you realize and realize your full potential, which helps you in learning about your own strengths and weaknesses. And to live in a world like this, we should be aware of everything that is going around. We should.
Sorry, how do I get back? Yeah. So this is little Kusum, who was with Teach for India for many years, and you can see her grown up now 5 years later. And again, Teach for India is really wanting to make teaching aspirational. You know, unfortunately, people who don't get any other career in life end up being teachers. And I'm not saying this for everyone, but I'm saying this a lot for the municipal sector, the government schools. And therefore, we want to really make teaching aspirational. And we want to develop a cadre of leaders who are going to remove the educational inequity in our country. And that's really what Teach for India is all about. So they join us as fellows, work full-time for 2 years in Teach for India, in a municipal school or a low-income private school. And after that, they become alum. And hopefully, as alum, they do something to remove this educational inequity. I'm very happy to say there are 3,500 alum today in Teach for India over these last 12 years. And 70% of them stay back in the social sector and most of them in education. So just as an example, I'll take you through, there's a guy called Soumya who finished his engineering, went to the US to do his MBA, got a great job, and was there for 4 years. But he felt that there was something that was missing in him. And that's when he heard about Teach for India, and he felt, I want to get back to India and do something for my country. So he convinced his wife, who thought he was totally mad, to leave such an excellent job, to have a flat of their own, a car, everything that you can afford in the US, and come back to India. So he joined the fellowship for 2 years. And believe it or not, but in the city of Pune, most municipal schools end in the 7th standard. And so poor people have to then, if they want to send their children to complete 8th, 9th, and 10th, they have to pay for education in low-income private schools. And so Soumya decided, I'm going to start 8th, 9th, and 10th schools in the city of Pune. So today he has 9 schools that are catering predominantly to Teach for India children who finish in the 7th and then go 8th, 9th, and 10th into his I Teach schools. Another such fantastic human being is Saurabh. Saurabh also finished his engineering at IIT, worked, and felt that there was something incomplete in his life till he found Teach for India, went through 2 years of Teach for India, loved it, and then applied as a principal to one of the Akanksha schools. And then 4 years later, he applied to be the CEO of Akanksha. And 3 years ago, he became CEO of Akanksha Foundation. So, you know, there are so many of these stories of Teach for India. Priyanka is this young girl that you see over here. She's somebody who joined Teach for India through a program, a concert called Maya that Teach for India had put up. And then she was picked up by UWC, and today she's in her 4th year studying at Franklin Marshall in the US. So I think, I mean, I really and truly feel that education is the best leveler in society. It really enables choices for our children. And all these kids are just so bright and they have so much to offer. It's just that they don't have the opportunity. And I'm really happy that TFI and Akanksha are giving them this opportunity. And then because of shortage of time, I'm not going to go through this, but I'm part of Shakti Sustainable Energy Foundation, which is basically looking at moving India into clean power, into sustainable transportation, into climate policy change. I'm also part of an organization called Social Venture Partners. This is basically a lot of us coming together, philanthropists coming together, and we together decide in terms of which NGOs we want to fund in the space of employability. Social Venture Partners is in 7 cities across India, and it's also a US-based NGO, which they brought to India. And it's great fun because we all collaborate and together do things in terms of not only writing a check, which is a very small part of it, but the main thing is giving of our time and giving of our skill set. Firoz is a trustee of Jahangir Hospital. And so he spends a lot of his time and we spend some of our money in terms of the hospital. These are some of the major items that we focus on. And of course, we have our kids today. And at the moment, both of them, one is more into health issues and the other one is very much focused on animals, especially dogs. So we are going to have to get them into and seeing how they look at philanthropy as well. And last but not least is our corporate social responsibility at Thermax. The foundation started in 2007, which is way before the CSR rules were put together. Again, in the foundation, because this is something, a space that we truly believed in. So we decided, let's look at quality education for underprivileged children. And that's when they took on the schools for Akanksha. And today we fund a couple of the schools, but also fund the entire alumni network for Akanksha, because we believe that it's not just the school, but it's trying to take these kids out of poverty. That should really be what we should be focusing on. At the time, we had only a couple of manufacturing locations. Today, we have 10 in India. And so our CSR committee, where Naushir is also a member, suggested that we should look at supporting communities around our manufacturing facilities. So today we've tied up with an NGO that provides access to government schemes for the poor. You know, there are a lot of government schemes in India, but the poor just don't know about it. Like if you're a widow, you're entitled to a certain amount. If you're disabled, you're entitled to a certain amount. So this NGO helps them get this amount from the government. The second is desilting a river in Sholapur. You can see it flowing beautifully over here, which was used for drinking water as well as for agriculture. It was a tiny little rivulet, which had to be desilted. So we took on that. Then another one is skill training to make the poor employable, especially women. And we try and get our employees involved in as much as possible. Unfortunately, it's the same 50, 70, 100 that get involved in our CSR activities, but we're trying hard to see how do we sort of spread it across many, many more people. And this is the last slide. I'd like to end with my father's saying, which is profit is not only a set of figures, but of values. So with that, I'd like to thank all of you. Mayor, I think you're on mute.
Yes, sorry. What can I say about you? You are a true Zoroastrian with good thoughts, good words and deeds. Your life is so rich. And God bless you always. And may you do much more than what you are currently doing for the community, as well as people in India. You are truly a daughter of Mother India.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks for that inspiring talk. I'm seeing so many good comments about you talking. So now it's time that we bring in Persis Setna to conduct the question and answer session. Persis is a global director of WZCC UK. He is currently the director of business change services and his own consultancy, PRT Partners Limited, with well-known clients including Currys and Carphone Warehouse. Prior to that, he was a director of product development across 180 countries at BT Global Services. Persis has been an active member of the WZCC and Zoroastrian Trust Funds of Europe for many years and is an alumnus of Imperial College of London and INSEAD Business School in France. Persis, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor, for the introduction. And thank you, Mayor Pudumjee, for covering such interesting interesting topics. We've got loads of comments for you, Mayor, on the chat function. Lots of people with very fond memories and thoughts about what you're saying. And also, everybody, please do put your questions on here, and I'll have the pleasure of quizzing Mayor for you so we can get to know you a little better, Mayor. But let me just start with something that's very much in all of our minds at the moment, which is, of course, COVID and coronavirus. You must have been hit, like everybody else, by the current public health crisis. Could you say a little bit about how that hit your company and employees, of course, and customers, and how you've been dealing with that?
Sure. Yeah, In March, March is our financial year end in India. And I think it was the 23rd of March when we were told that we had to shut down. It was absolutely overnight. And so every manufacturing activity had to be shut down. Every office had to be shut down. And, we've never been used to working from home as a manufacturing company.
Yes. Yes.
So strange, but about 2-3 years ago, my HR head and I were talking about why don't we enhance the number of women by allowing them to work from home.
Yes.
And when we put this up to the rest of the team, people sort of scoffed at it and said, there is no way that you can work from home. But we were, of course, forced to with COVID-19. We had no choice. And so suddenly our IT department had to get into gear and provide people, because not many people had access to either a laptop or even the internet. Similarly with the children in schools, I mean, especially the poor children, absolutely no access. And so we got into gear, and I have to say the team did a super job. And we also immediately called for a board meeting, and we said that we need to change our budget completely for this year.
Right.
And so we had 4 budgets actually that we put in place because things became worse and worse as they moved along.
Right.
And we said, listen, this year, let us not look at our top line and bottom line. That's not really what is important. This year, what is important is the health and safety of our people. This year, what is important is cash flow. So these are the parameters by which we will judge, how well. And I have to say that, again, the team has done a super job.
Fantastic. So do you think the policy that you have, which is home working, will continue, hopefully after the pandemic, especially with the point of view of inclusion and more women being able to join?
Yeah, Persis, I really hope so. We are actually working on a policy right now for working from home. It may not be entirely work from home. It might be a mixture, sort of a blend between the two, because I think, let's also face it, that there are many people who have found it very difficult to work in a tiny apartment, living with in-laws, living with joint families, not having privacy to really give off their best. So they're dying to come to work, So I think we have to blend the two, but I really hope we can, because then it is really talent from anywhere that we can access going forward.
Wonderful. A chance for a new way of working. Just on that subject, Mayor, in terms of the policy, obviously your company puts safety and security first for your employees and customers. How have you found it working with government and government policy in these areas?
The government, Pune was the COVID capital, unfortunately. So I think the government has tried to do what it could. Many people blame the government, saying that the lockdown happened too early. But I think everyone, including the government, didn't know what had hit us.
Yes.
So I don't think we can really blame or put fingers on the government, but just all crossing our fingers that we don't have another lockdown, because that would really be disastrous for the economy.
Yes, fingers crossed for vaccines and so on as well. But staying on the subject of governments and business, Malcolm Jiwala has a question for you. In fact, there are 2 questions related. Any thoughts on increasing the Thermax presence in the US with a shift to more green technologies with our new president? And an interesting angle on that from Sia K, I think. Will Iran be a potential market for Thermax anytime soon? What do you think?
The US, we already do business in the US. Our chemical business, we manufacture something called ion exchange resins for water and non-water treatment. Yeah. And 50% of our business comes from outside India, most of it from the US. It is a small business, but mind you, chemicals was the only one which actually grew month over month, even during COVID. So that's one of the businesses that we are hoping will grow in the US. And the second one, which is on the green agenda, is our vapor absorption chillers. You know, the chiller business that I spoke about on the potato chips. And so we're hoping that that will really grow and take off in the US, well, in time to come. Yeah.
Very good. And what about Iran?
With regard to Iran, you know, in fact, Firoz is the one who oversees our international business. And when he was head of international, in fact, we had signed up with an Iranian company to manufacture chillers. But because Iran is probably, I think, the third or fourth largest country for selling vapor absorption chillers because of their gas.
Right.
Unfortunately, things soured in terms of politically, and we had to come away. So we couldn't take this any further. I don't know if it has an opportunity and we can do it. Of course, now with the new president of the US, maybe things will be possible.
Yep.
I think Iran could be a very good country especially for vapor absorption chillers. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, well, many different subjects here coming up for you, Mayor, so I'll keep going. By the way, Sia K was Siavash Kaviani. We also have a question from Natalie Gandhi. Do you have a ventures arm for startups?
No, we don't have a ventures arm for startups, but we do have, we do invest in certain companies, well, depending upon whether it fits into a particular strategy. But in terms of startups, we've never done that before. No,
okay.
Never done that.
Okay, maybe something to think about. More questions here. We have Jasmine, I think it was Jasmine Kotwal, asking for a little more on your management development agenda, which I'm sure is very close to your heart. And related to that also, Dinya Jilla is asking about your business excellence models. What business excellence models? I guess he's thinking about Lean or Six Sigma, etc.
Yeah. So with business excellence, I mean, we don't have a business excellence model per se, but we do follow Lean in our manufacturing processes. We set up a new plant, which is a state-of-the-art plant, again, for our chillers in Sri City in Andhra Pradesh. And recently, very recently, only 2 years ago. And a lot of the processes in Sri City are totally digitized, manufacturing processes.
Right.
We are looking to move towards industry, well, I can't say 4.0, but as close as possible. What was the question before that?
So that was related to your management development agenda.
Yeah, I mean, we invest a lot in our people, and a lot of our, especially middle level management, is mostly filled from within the organization, and so it's not only, we've just in fact started sending people out for management development programs abroad, but other than that, we've been focusing in India. So we had a lot of management development programs with ISB, with the Indian School of Business. Prior to that, we did it with Symbiosis, and we have something called, I've forgotten the name, Project Agile or some project that we have, where we identify all our potential talent for the future and take them through a very rigorous program, which we just finished, in fact, with ISB about 18 months ago. Right. So that's a continuous program. And then we move them from either departments or divisions so that they get experience within the company.
Very good. So you were talking about gender, and clearly very innovative in terms of really setting the entry level for women in entering the company. Yeah. What's your thoughts about some government interventions and other interventions in other countries, which are more or less forcing a kind of quota for gender onto boards? Would you see yourself taking such proactive action also?
We have that in India. We have to have a woman on the board. and the woman has to be, Naushad, the woman has to be an independent director, right? She can't be someone who's an
Yes, yes, correct.
independent director.
Yes.
And so we have an independent director woman, and of course me, who's non-independent on the board.
Yeah.
And I just think I was quite anti it in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because then people were putting their mothers and sisters and aunts and whatever have you initially. But I think it is forcing people to think about women as an important addition on boards. So I think it's moving now in the right direction. But there aren't that many women who are, who are on boards of companies. So it's those handful that are constantly sort of pulled to get onto boards of companies. But I must say that there are many people like Spencer Stewart and Egon and other people who are now training women to get onto boards of companies, which is a good thing.
Excellent. Okay, very good. Well, look, Mayor, obviously you yourself have had a wonderfully successful career, talented in many ways, and obviously lots of inspiration to people on the chat function here. Times can be difficult for people, can't they? For everyone, even the most successful. Perhaps you could talk a little bit about setbacks and perhaps challenges that you've had. What was the biggest challenge do you think you faced, and how did you go about yourself personally facing it and getting through it?
I would say the biggest setback was when my father passed away. And then a year later, my brother passing away. But my father passing away was very, very difficult for us because he had gone into so many different areas, as I spoke about. And he was sort of the heart and soul of the organization, leading it. And so it was really, really difficult for us to manage, especially Annu, but I would say even Firoz and me.
Yes.
And just dealing with things, with the whole situation without him around. We would ask ourselves, had he been around, would he have continued with this, or almost sometimes feeling guilty that we have to close something down that he had started or had to sell something off. We had to ask people to leave for the first time in the history of Thermax. We had only ever asked people to leave on integrity issues. But this was a time when we just couldn't carry so many people along with us. So it was really tough. Very tough on my mom because at that time she was leading the organization, but very tough on Firoz and me because we were there to support her and help her out in all this.
So what would you say helped you the most? What or who helped you the most?
I think
personally,
I think each other, just being there for each other. Honestly, I would say that really helped me. My mother's a real toughie, and I think just being there for each other was of great help. Yeah.
Of course. I guess leading on from that, and with a view to our audience, how do you think our Zoroastrianism, tradition, religion, roots, background, family, how do you think that conditions us to deal with challenges? And is it actually very different from other traditions?
I don't know whether it helps. I mean, I don't know whether Zoroastrianism helps with dealing in challenges, but I just love the tenets of our religion, which is good thoughts, good words, good deeds. And I think if you think of those in whatever you do, hopefully that doesn't mean that you won't go through challenges, but hopefully you'll be able to come out of it that much faster.
Fantastic. Okay. CSR, I'm rushing through a little bit, as you can hear, Mayor, but there are lots of questions. Obviously, you are fully committed to CSR, and I guess part of that is climate change as well, which many people are concerned about. When it comes to your interaction with very senior figures in government and top management of other companies, of course, it's tempting that CSR becomes a badge, doesn't it? Something in their PR, something that they can talk about. What's your impression truly from being on the inside as to how seriously such people in positions of influence truly are committed to making a change?
Again, just like the women on boards, we have, it was introduced in India a few years ago that you have to commit 2% of your profits to CSR. Again, when that came in first, I was extremely skeptical for exactly this reason, that, people just do it as lip service. But again, today I would say that there are many that do it as lip service even today because they have to tick mark that they've done this 2%. Yes. But I think it's pushed many people to think about it more seriously. And, in India, we have no dearth of social issues. And so I think slowly things are changing. There are still, I would say, fewer organizations that do it because they truly mean it and they want to make a difference. But many organizations still look at it that, okay, I need to do it. I'll fund you for 3 years. I'm out after 3 years, irrespective. That's part of my mandate.
Yes.
Which I think is so short term because
yes.
If you're in education, if you're in health, if you're in any of these social issues, it takes a long time to change, to move the needle even very, very slightly.
I see. Okay. Well, look, I'm afraid that the clock is against us. I could just keep going for a long time. Maybe just 2 final questions. One is from Rustam, Rustam Engineer. In fact, also Rohinton Rivetna. He would love to hear your ideas and support in helping World's Russian Chamber of Commerce take up projects to help and give service to communities. Do you have any thoughts on how WZCC could be part of the helping journey?
We haven't looked per se at WZCC or anything. I mean, for example, if Rotary has a good project, we have looked at it from time to time, especially if it fits in with our agenda. So like that, if WZCC has a project which fits in with our agenda, I mean, we would be happy to look at it. It doesn't mean that I would say yes for it or that our board would say yes for it or our committee would say yes for it, but I'm very happy to look at it if it makes sense.
Fantastic. Very good. Okay, well, look, I could certainly keep going for a long time, but thank you so much for helping us to get to know you a little better. I've got one final question for you. They say the brand is something they say when you're not in the room about you.
Sorry?
A brand is something people say about you when you're not in the room. So what would you like people to say about you when Mayor Pudumjee is not in the room?
That's a tough one.
I know you like tough questions, Mayor. Come on.
Mayor, you've done good. You have done well now. Come on. This is the
I think someone who brings passion to anything that she does.
I think we can clearly see that.
It could be Thermax, it could be my music, it could be my social work, it could be just anything. My children, my husband, my mom, anyone. Yeah, I think it's just
wonderful. Yeah. Mayor, thank you for the passion.
Thank you.
Handing back to the studio.
Thank you, Persis.
Over to you, Mayor.
Persis, that was a wonderful question and answer session you conducted. The best ever. And thank you, Meher, for being so genuine and so articulate.
Thank you, Meher.
Now, I would like to invite Shehnaz Engineer, Chair of WZCC UK chapter, to deliver a vote of thanks. Shehnaz, what can I say about you? You do not need any introduction. You're a success story in yourself. For those who know very little about Shehnaz, because this is an international audience, Shehnaz is a founder of Verity Appointments, a boutique recruitment agency started by her 25 years ago in London. It deals in generalist, office recruitment, and supply teachers. Shehnaz is on the board of various charities like Tamasha Theatre, which showcases contemporary Britain, Learning for Life, which assists marginalized children in remote areas of India and Nepal, and is the founding free man of Company of Entrepreneurs. She is a member of prestigious Bank of England Small Business Advisory Panel. She has been a recipient of Asian Achievement Award in 2010 and again in 2019, and was one of the 100 women nominated by Mayor of London as Women Who Make London Great. I now request you, Shanaz, to deliver a vote of thanks. It was
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
done so well.
Thank you. This morning, someone sent me a Dalai Lama's sayings, and this one just depicts you, Mayor. It says, generosity is the most natural outward expression of an inner attitude of compassion and loving kindness. And I think that really brings you out. This is exactly the sort of thing that I would put on your epitaph. It's brilliant. But Mayor, on behalf of WZCC Global, I want to say a big thank you. It has been a very special hour that we have spent with you. You have shown us that it's not enough to succeed in business, but to essentially give back to others in the wider community. You truly follow the tenets of Zoroastrianism. You said that yourself. Our faith tells us to make money, but to then distribute it to the ones who don't have enough. And of course, one other thing that people don't know about Zoroastrianism is that we do look after our environment. And that's what you are doing now, and it's wonderful. You really are indeed a beacon of and a role model for young women who have aspirations to have a successful career and have a family. Once again, thank you for being with us, and we wish you and your family great success and prosperity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been absolutely marvelous.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Meher. More power to you. Thank you, Shanaz. Thank you, Persis. Thank you, Naushir Mirza.
Thank you to Mayor Besania and Yazdi Tantra, who set these worldwide webinars, which we have really enjoyed over the COVID period. And honestly, some Saturday afternoons in London have been much better being in lockdown when we hear these superb webinars with some wonderful people like Mayor. Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you, participants, and look forward to seeing you all on 19th of December with yet another powerful webinar, which will be the last webinar of the year from WZCC side. And thank you, Adel, for all your support to all of us and leading the way for us. You have been brilliant, Adel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't wait for the 19th.
Thank you all.
Thanks a lot.
Bye and Happy New Year.